Hey, what's up? Andrew Kramer here for VideoCopilot.net, and welcome to another very exciting tutorial for optical flares, and welcome to the Eclipse tutorial. Now, we're going to be doing a lot of things here, layering optical flares and using some of the advanced features, so let's take a look at what we're going to be creating. Okay, so we've got this planet, and it's aligning with the stars, and obviously bad things are going to happen because whenever things get in a line, it's like bad news. Now, why couldn't it be good news is the question. Things are aligning. Oh, wow, look at this. Presents are falling from the sky. Well, it's not going to happen. Maybe. Doubtful. Okay, let's go and get started creating this comp. I love making these tutorials for products because then they're not publicly on the website and I can just be ridiculous. So let's create a new composition, and we'll do 720p here, and we'll make it 24 frames per second. We'll hit OK. Now I've got this moon texture that we're going to be using, and it looks pretty good. And we'll come up here, we'll choose Effect, we'll choose Perspective, CC Sphere. And so it wraps it up pretty nicely. We'll move it here in the middle. We'll go and work at about half resolution. We'll go and scale it up. Turn the radius up. Looking good. Now we're going to animate a few things. So we'll go into the light settings. We're going to move the height over to about right here, -10 or so. Now I want to animate it over about 100 frame period, so that it leaves just a little bit of a border on the side. Looking good. Now we're going to add a fake camera orbit, so I want to go ahead and rotate the planet as well, or the moon as it were. So we'll go ahead, keyframe the Y rotation, hit U, we'll move forward, and I probably just want to rotate it a little bit. I mean, this is just trying to make it look interesting. Now we'll come down here to the shading. We'll turn up the ambient light so we can see the moon a little bit more. But some NASA engineers are saying, well, if the light source was on the other side of the planet, yeah. Why don't you get back to your particle accelerator and do your thing. Now I want to go and create a new layer with optical flares. So we'll create a solid. I'll hit OK. Choose Effect, Video Copilot, Optical Flares. Now we're going to go into the options, and we need to create a quick lens flare. Now I've got my pop-up open, nice and big. We can close that. And by the way, kind of a cool tip is if your windows kind of get hidden or blocked or something weird happens to them, if you just go into the preferences here, say reset the windows, hit OK, and then they'll be back in action. So just a quick tip if something should go wrong. Now we're going to create a sun lens flare. So let's clear this, and we'll come over here to the lens objects. We're going to add a glow and another glow. So we're going to make a relatively simple looking sun for right now. So we'll come down here, nice and bright. Now, I have two glows here because I want one of them to act as the sun, or the core of this sun. So we have a thing in here with the gamma control. So if we solo the layer, we can scale it up and then turn the gamma down, which creates a nice sharp looking glow element. And this is going to be really useful for creating this sun. So we'll unsolo it so that we have both the layers. And just having the two layers together really works out. So we'll hit OK, and this is our first flare. Now we'll put this at the bottom here. Now I want to go ahead and move the size of the flare to be similar to this planet, or this moon. Now let's go and make that a little bit sharper. So we'll go back into the options here. I'll select this hard glow. Let's go down to 0.05, and we'll solo that. And we might, let's see, turn the brightness down and bring the scale up, or the other way around. Let's turn the brightness up, bring the scale down, and that will actually make it a little bit sharper. Okay, looking good. Nice, bright sun. So we'll hit OK. And this is about the right size, so I think we'll go ahead and go with it this way. Okay, for our fake sun, we'll go ahead and hit return, and we'll call this sun. I want to go ahead and animate the position. So we'll move forward here, and I want to move it behind our planet here. Just align it there horizontally or so. So we've kind of created the basics of this eclipse effect. But we're going to be making multiple layers of the lens flare elements. So let's go ahead and create another lens flare layer. So we'll create a new solid, and we'll choose OK. Effect, optical flares, options. Again, we'll clear it. Start from scratch here. It's so easy to create lens flares, we might as well start from scratch. So I want to create a star. And the cool thing about the streak is it has a replicator in it. So we can change this to 2, and now we have a star. We could also change it to an odd number, and we have a symmetry option here. And if we bring the symmetry down, then we can come over here, let's see, turn the replicator angle up, and then bring the symmetry back in a bit. So you can create some interesting things. You can maybe fan the edges, scale this object down a little bit. So it's kind of a fun thing. We're going to go with something more like 4, just for the sake of this, and we'll go with more of a golden color. Now I want to add some detail, so we'll add a glint and a shimmer. Now the glint, I want to scale it down, and the shimmer, we want to add some animation. So we'll come down to the animation control, turn the speed up to about 100, and maybe a little less than that, but you can see it animates when you hold the mouse down in the preview. So this is pretty good. I do want to add some multi-iris elements, maybe make them nice and large, and we'll use a sphere, and we'll turn up the smoothness here. Now I'll make it kind of wide, stretched out a bit like that. Now our shimmer is a little bright, so we'll bring it down. We want this star to be a little bit more, sharp. Maybe bring the brightness of our glow down a little bit. So that's pretty good. Let's spread out our multi-iris a little bit more, and then change the distance, which will push it further away so that we see those elements. And I also like to sometimes duplicate the multi-iris, lower the number of objects, change the random seed, and that just makes it look different. And then we'll bring the spread closer together, push the distance further away, but then scale it up, and then lower the opacity. So we've created like 2 layers of elements. And then if you're interested, you could always make another one that's nice little small bits like that. So pretty cool, pretty straightforward. Okay, so we'll hit OK. And we can change the render mode to on transparent, but it's better if we just use screen, and it'll blend a little bit more naturally. So we're going to be doing this in a couple of different parts, but I probably want to add a little bit of contrast to this top layer. So just punch that up a bit. Now we'll hide the sun layer for a moment, and I want to go ahead and animate the position of this flare. So we'll keyframe the position, and we'll move forward, and we want to be very careful that we don't go past that point where the planet ends. Now I'm going to keyframe the brightness as well. So I've just added a keyframe. If you alt-click on a value in the effects control, it'll actually add a keyframe. So we'll bring the brightness down to 0, and then we'll move that over just so it lines up. And we can turn our background layer on. Cool. Now I can take our planet and give it a color correction real quick. Maybe punch up the red, bring down the, make it a little warmer, maybe add a little bit of contrast. Now I want to go ahead and duplicate the layer that we just made, the top flare. And so we'll duplicate it, Control D or Edit, Duplicate. And we'll put it below everything. We'll go into the options, and we're going to disable any of the multi-iris elements. So we'll hide this and this and this. So it's just the light source. And then we'll hit OK. And if I hide the background, we can kind of see what's going on. What I kind of want to do is make it so that that element stays up longer than the foreground flare. So if we slide it over a bit. Now what I want to do is make this background flare a little bit bigger and a little bit brighter. So we'll go into the options, and I'll turn the glow scale up and maybe the brightness as well. And hit OK. So it's a lot bigger, it's a lot brighter. And so then our top flare will just be a small little glimmer over this planet, and then it'll spark out. Maybe we'll offset it a little bit less. Now we might play around with the position of the flare so that it moves over just a little bit more. So let's keyframe the position. Now that it's behind the planet, it's kind of okay that we do it this way. But we just want it to look like there's a lot of light going on behind the planet, whereas if you just have a flare on top, it doesn't really give you the feel that there's something behind it that's big and powerful. So that's a kind of a cool thing. Now our sun layer probably needs a little contrast, so we'll add a curves here. I mean, we could tweak the flare, but it's probably easier just to go in there and make a few changes. Now let's extend this over and maybe move the keyframes also. Now one thing I did earlier is in the top flare, I want to add a little glint as it goes out. So just before it goes out here with the brightness, we'll go ahead, set a keyframe right here so that it's going out, and then all of a sudden it just, sparks up a quick little flash and then really does go out. We can maybe move that over a little bit more, and maybe even turn it down at this point so you really sell the idea that it is nearly out. And it looks like our moon animation stops a little early, so we'll slide those over. All right, this is looking pretty good. We might add some stars in the background, so I could create a solid, choose effect, generate, fractal noise, or actually it's a noise, fractal noise. Could scale it down a lot, turn the brightness down, and you can just see we have like little specks and little stars left over. Looking good. Put this at the bottom here and make sure that all of our layers are screened so that it shows through a bit. And then finally I might add a little bit of contrast on top of everything. And we could possibly even add a glow on top of it as well, but I think it looks pretty nice. Now if you want to have a sharper eclipse, you could tweak the sun, or you could create another copy of the planet and just give it, let's see, let's make it white. And just go ahead and make it white. We probably want to bring the radius down just a little bit so it's just a little bit smaller than the planet. And we could add just a slight glow. So let's take a look. And then we want to move it over so that it animates with the sun in the background. But first, let's bring the radius down so the glow doesn't bleed out. So we'll just keyframe the layer, I guess. We'll hit position keyframe. Let's line it up with the rest of our animation. Holding down shift will snap to keyframes and markers and stuff. And so then I'll just slide it over. And you can, see what's happening is it's looking a little bit more like it belongs. Okay, looking good. So you can tweak the look and play around with some more intricate flares, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of an insight. Now, I do actually want to show you one other quick thing, I guess, while we're here. We've got a little bit of spare time. let's take the layer here, paste it, and we'll just create a new solid. So that's fine. We'll add optical flares, and we'll set this to screen. Now, I want to go ahead and show you the foreground occlusion in sort of a basic way. Now, the thing about using a layer that's not the same size of the comp is that After Effects doesn't quite know where the pixels are. So you want to go ahead and pre-compose the layer and move all the attributes. There you go. So we'll take our optical flares layer, we'll go to the foreground slot and set the source to this moon. And now if we move the layer, it will kind of fade out as it goes behind it. Now, the light radius, if we set that to say 1, it will, be a smaller amount of fade out as it reaches the edge. So a larger number might indicate, a larger light source, but you can play around with those kind of things as you do it. Now, here's another idea: is if you create a light, use the light as the position. So we set it to track lights. Now we can move this around. And then if our layer is 3D, so we'll turn on the 3D layer switch there. And you sometimes want to just shut off to the accept lights there. Now, if we go to the top view here, you can see our light is right here and our layer is right there. So if we move it just behind it and go back to the active camera, we will automatically get the obscuration that we're looking for, and it won't matter if the layer is moved or scaled or changed. It'll work properly. So if your foreground layer is set up to use a layer, if that layer is 3D, optical flares will sort of automatically, calculate the vector between the light and the camera, and if it's obscured, it'll do it. So even using a 3D light is a good way to do 2D compositing, like the scene that we just created. So that is that. I am Andrew Kramer, and we'll see you next time.